Guys, welcome back to the Malbash Spotlight Show. I'm here with an awesome guest. Like, we're fast friends, and I just love him to death. Vinnie Potestivo here with us, and just we really appreciate having you on the show. You're super busy, very important person. You're a CEO of your own company, and you are a speaker. I mean, you got your own things going with podcasts. I mean, you do everything, Vinnie. So thanks for taking the time to be here.
Thanks for reminding me how busy I am, Maron. I love the music, by the way. I'm fully rocking out to like this energy, bashing out already. I get it. I'm picking up what you're putting down there. I see what you're doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The it kind of gives you a little bit of a hype. You got to get all hyped up and ready
Yeah,
for it. So,
yeah,
um, we're super excited to have you, Vinny. It's just been a blessing to get to know you along the way
yeah,
here. So
yeah. A
we
lot
can
of
learn.
giggles, a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we almost connected at Podfest, which he was a speaker for, and got to meet with some like cool people. So we'll learn about that in a little bit. But we want to learn about you and how you got into what you've done so much with some of the tops. You've introduced them to become the top. So and then you've gotten your life and your perspective and who you are. So what is the inspirational force and what kind of got you started in what you do? I don't even know exactly how to put it. You're a personality, an on-air personality.
Oh
So,
gosh, I appreciate that. I laugh because it's probably my favorite coping mechanism.
oh,
And I think I turned into a creative person because of coping, and it turned. I think everything that I do now and became and leaned into as an adult was what I experienced as a child. I was taught how to be able to create, by myself and collaborate with others as the oldest of sibling of back then four, and I was given an instant cast for all of my Thanksgiving musicals and all of my holiday spectaculars that I put on in front of my family. And I just learned and I loved collaborating and working with my sister and with my brothers. And I kind of realized that, like, the stories would change based on who we were sharing, the story with. The facts wouldn't change, the characters wouldn't change, but the stories would change. If my grandma was in the room, if it was for my sister and her friends, if it was for my brother Joey, who's a year younger than me, and our friends, the stories would change. And I love that about storytelling, and I kind of found it fascinating to be able to share other people's story, mostly as a coping mechanism, to deflect away from any attention or any sort of spotlight that I was getting. Because for me, I felt like the last thing I wanted was the spotlight. I felt like with the spotlight came great responsibility, and also to be blunt. I think another thing I was told by somebody that I had a really close relationship with, that this is hard to say, but I was told that I wasn't talented. So I thought to myself, and this is before the internet and social media. So here I am with this newfound information that I did not ask for, and I thought, well, then how am I going to get talented? If I get in trouble by being with these five friends, and these five friends are the sum of who I am, and these five friends mean I'm in trouble, according to my parents, and like, then let me go find five friends that are super talented, and maybe that'll like make me more talented. Maybe I'll pick up on like what they're putting down, and that literally was what made me most curious about the entertainment industry, was my ability to bring people together, discover people and opportunities together, bring them and connect them, and leave them with an opportunity to create, and learning how people created and learning how people consumed. I got to watch my cousins. First, as a kid, I got to watch my cousins and my brothers and sisters. And in college, I was the dude at the computer center. If you don't know what that even means, back then you used to have to go one room, like one room on campus had internet in the computer center before the dorm rooms had it when I was in school. So you'd go to the computer center, and it was my job to help you with the margins on your paper, or if there was a printer jam, or digitizing photos to your GeoCities or websites. And it was this idea of like of managing, and all of that. by the way, which I didn't realize it was what it was doing. It was like my Mr. Miyagi, Karate Kid, paint the fence, this idea
Yeah.
of like, well, how is changing documents going to help me in real life? And the truth of the matter is that all of those term papers that I helped, other people fine tune in their words, their fonts, their language, their aesthetic, I was able to learn how people presented information. And I turned that into show decks and casting one sheets and talent one sheets. And I was able to organize information on Excel and Access, and create a database in a way that just wasn't kind of being done in the late 90s, early 2000s. And ultimately, it was that organization, it was that tech, that organizational skill that I had from digitizing content or understanding how to get content from a hard disk, from floppy disk to hard disk to tape. I understood that process. I was curious about that process. And when MTV was looking to create its talent development department, the last thing they needed was another casting person. I had no experience casting, but what I did have experience doing, well, I had some experience casting, but what I really was like a master of at 20 and 19 was databases. I knew how to put out a casting notice or something on the internet that asked people to send me in their information. And I was able to, whether that was on snail mail or email, take that information, convert it to data, put it in a database, and then actually use it, like move on it. And I got to work with Fox News in the late 90s with Hannity and Colmes, which was a really cool bipartisan show about politics where we learned, questions from both sides of the aisle. And ultimately that led to a tiny little reputation that I somehow got because producers talk to producers and people talk to people, that I kind of had this like thing for databases and a decent eye for casting. I understood the ropes, and I'd already been an intern when I was in 1994. I think when I was like a junior in high school, I interned at the Staten Island Community Access Channel, so I could learn how to do what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to be a camera operator because camera operators, this is so weird. Camera operators have to stand up. And I thought, why would you want to be a camera operator, stand up all day? That sounds like an exhausting job. I should be in the control room. And I went to the control room and I was like, well, what job would I do? I'm like, the teleprompter doesn't look like it's my job. And I would love to be a director, but I'm terrified of calling the board and switching the board. So, and my hands can do like one thing. My left hand and my right hand, they do the same thing, up and down. I can't play the piano. I don't have that ability to make my hands to do different things at once. So ultimately, I landed on technology, and I could digitize content and had this like sort of weird way in. And it was curiosity that, and then when I felt like I had this database, and I felt like I saw that it was an impressive feature, and I kind of learned how, when I was talking to a casting director, how to sort of understand what they were working on, and then explain to them how I had a database, and maybe they could use the same database that I have with their talent, because it helps me organize shows. And that was really the beginning part of what turned into a 10-year career at MTV. And for 3 years, the first 3 years, I would say I didn't really, unscripted TV, like The Real World was the closest to unscripted we worked on for at least 2 years in talent development. We put Beyonce in her first film. We brought Mandy Moore to the network and put her in her first film. And MTV Films, I was helping cast MTV Films, helping launch MTV.com. But my boss, a New Yorker, a true and tried New Yorker, moved to LA, and I was so devastated. I was like, why would you leave New York and move to LA? And took a meeting with Sharon Osbourne, and lo and behold, the Osbournes ultimately was created, and then Punk'd and Newlyweds. And I got to watch some of the biggest talent brands in modern pop culture and also in business culture get created. Like, I literally was in the room when these billion-dollar brands were created. So I don't claim to have made some of those choices or decisions for them, in my early 20s, but I was in the room when those decisions were happening. I saw the contracts that were being signed. It was my job to collect signatures. Actually, my job on Punk'd, I had the worst job on Punk'd. I got to cast Dax and Al and like the actors at first, but then It was my job to like go back and get the signatures for talent who didn't sign the release form immediately after Punk. So after they get punked, then they sign the release form. But some actors and some people got pretty upset about how things went, and those people refused to sign. So it was my job to try to go get signatures. But that's all about relationships. That's cool. So I understood that, and I knew what I was stepping into. But it was just cool, the coolest process, and to get to help people, artists, business owners, accountants, Jessica Simpson, dog trainers, dog walkers, florists, to get to help people change their life by presenting them with some options that we record and then later on show to the world, whether it's broadcast on television or narrowcast on podcast and social media. But it's the exhibition of showing the choices that we've made that allow people to change the perception of our reality. And having a front row at MTV in the late 90s, early 2000s gave me that edge to do what I do now, and I still do it. It's just making people stand out, helping them become more and more discoverable. And I appreciate here, as you have here on the screen, VPE.tv. This is where my hub for all opportunity. So please reach out. But I have a podcast.com. I have a podcast.com as I felt a need to discover and identify emerging independent artists, like to make sure that us podcasters who aren't being paid by the iHearts and the Spotify's or by brands that own the podcast, that we have a viable opportunity to be successful in this industry. We have the opportunity to own our content and distribute it. Oh, this is so cool. Ashley, by the way, what a cool experience to be here on this podcast. And if you're listening, what I'm seeing right now, and if you're watching, thank you so much for bringing this up. Yeah, I thought it would be a cool way for like people to share information on what's happening in podcasts and like get discovered, get like seen, and share it too, and share it.
Absolutely. You've got some really exciting irons in the fire here. You've got the podcasting is growing by 20 million every single year. So it's becoming this huge. Social audio is in, like it's in. Radio used to be dead, but now it's coming back, baby. And I think it's making it more connected. And you found a niche. And this is I have a podcast website. I'm going to share here too, where you can find Vinnie on your VPE TV website as well. But you just got, you've got such a passion for people, Vinnie, and it doesn't take like too much to see that right off the bat. So I just really love to share that too. You've got such a passion on connecting people. That's your passion. You've done that, whether you've wanted to or not. And I like literally cringed when I heard you say you had to go and get release forms from people. That had to have been worse than being like a bill collector or something. I'm sure that was just like the worst thing in the world. So I'm so sorry.
Well, I mean, the good news is that I mean, for me, it would be like, look, you're right. That's how I would start. Look, you're right. It probably wasn't executed correctly. And that's probably why you feel the way you do. So like, I just want to acknowledge that. And if it doesn't work out now, let me know if you're open to being punked in the future. You'll never know when you're going to get punked. But there were some people that said like, absolutely don't ever, like they pulled me aside and like looked me dead in the eyes and told, in fact, Puffy, Diddy, and Nick Cannon, both of them repetitively were terrified to be punked. They're like, nah, I don't want to be punked. Don't punk me. And I'll never forget, we had like an upfront at MTV where all the shows kind of come up and we share with the advertisers. And I saw the three of them connecting and talking over and over. And Nick was like, I told him there's Diddy's proof. He's like, never punk. You can't punk us. Like we made a trifecta pact to never be punked. It was so funny. But that was my job, to be honest. My job in talent development was to listen and to watch. My job was to listen to talent, understand ideas, things that they felt passionate about,
Yeah.
and watch my MTV grid, the programming get in, and see where I can plug in those opportunities. If I can plug them in as a guest host on spring break or some seasonal programming, maybe that's how I would start. If I thought they represented a really cool genre of music or a lens, they fractured the conversation in music in a way other than through genre. That would be something sort of interesting to me, and I'd bring that up to the table. If we could talk about music as an 18-year-old versus a 21-year-old, we experience music so differently. That would be something that I'd love to talk about, especially because I grew up going to school during the golden era, like Dave Matthews Band, the live album was like that was my freshman year. My sophomore year, I think, was probably a lot of Indigo Girls and Sarah McLachlan. I went to school,
Yeah.
I went to school 95 to 99. So 95 Clueless came out. You know what I mean? Like and music was impacting us in such a tremendous way that
So different.
and I got to MTV and I understood that. And I knew that we were bad storytellers. Inherently, we are bad story. We are, or I shouldn't say we, just because I was. I was a horrible. I was like, I'm the worst villain. I'm the villain in my story. I'm a victim in my story. And I'm like, what story is that? What a crappy story. I'm gonna change that tune real quick. But I had to work hard to be able to. That's what it did. Is like I knew when I needed to change my story. I
Mhm.
knew that I am not the kind of person to speak in the future and just accept future success. And I know that's a mindset thing. I know people say, think of the future, talk about being successful in the future. And for me, that felt a little bit too much faking it
Okay.
till you make it. But I used that call to take big action. And when I said I was going to be a casting director, instead of pretending like I'm a casting director and walking around campus pretending like I'm a casting director, I went and took out an ad on backstage.com, Backstage
That's
the
awesome.
magazine back then, and got 500 submissions. So I use that as like a jumping off point. When I feel called to change something, I know I have to create it. So here I am, 45 now, and about 5 years ago, I knew I was going to finally start my own podcast, and it was 2006 when I converted my first podcast into a TV show. But I thought, I'm really just good at working with celebrities. I'm really just good at working with business founders. I'm really good at getting founders and people with businesses and brands on television. And the TV networks know that. So they pay me to find all of these people. And then I think like 5 years ago, I was like, why do I have to work with networks and production companies when I truly care more about your goals? In fact, most of my job in TV was figuring out how to help you get your goals by being on television, because more often than not, the goal of the TV show was not aligned with your financial or monetization goals or brand goals. More likely than not. I'm just saying.
Is that which kind of inspired you to get into the podcasting world?
Yeah,
Because that's a different,
yeah, fully.
whole different realm. But
Yeah,
it's not. It is. It's not, but it is.
yeah, right. There's rules, but there's not.
Yeah.
I'll say this: I probably will never jump into advertising. Famous last words. I probably won't jump
You
into.
are an advertiser. You're
Well, that's also why is like I'm selling people all the time. The last thing I
exactly.
need is to have to worry about a brand to bring in to finance what I'm doing. And how about this? Instead of advertisers on my podcast, what I would love is a brand to come in like IBM or Adobe to come in and help me. I have something called the Creator Accelerator. And if you identify as a female, as an educator, and as BIPOC, AAPI, LGBTQ+, or if you're in school and you're a student, or if you support us, if you are an ally to any of us that I just mentioned, I give these tools away for free. I want to empower the people around me. I want you to be immediately successful and consistently successful. And it starts now. So I want to
Yeah.
help you start winning awards now. I want to help you start figuring out how to get credit for the work that you're creating for yourself and for others, now. Like, for example, I'm passionate about podcasters getting their podcasts on IMDb. This is
Yeah.
huge. For years, IMDb has been the place for actors and directors, Spielberg and Mandy Moore and Tom Cruise. Like, this is where they get credits for films and TV. And now podcast is a form of media that's acceptable on IMDb, which means as a executive producer of your show, you literally have the same title as Spielberg now,
Mhm.
simply because you took your podcast and brought it to IMDb. And the SEO win is absolutely ridiculous. And what I tried to do on ihaveapodcast.com. So I have this thing on ihaveapodcast.com/interview where I ask people, podcasters, to come in and apply. And the goal for me was to get a little bit of information of you so I can get it out to the Google News verified platform that we publish to help you get verified on social media. I know the game. I know what you need to have, the point
Mhm.
system that Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all of these platforms use to get verified. I know the importance, the social implications of verification. I get it. I
Yeah.
want to help make that happen. Um, so that's why when I launched my podcast, I have a podcast. I kind of felt called. There's this really cool app called Good Pods. Have you ever
Mhm.
heard it? Are you on it? Good
I've
Pods.
heard of it. I'm not on it. I need to get on it though.
What I like about Good Pods is it's a little bit of like a small sea right now. So you can there's room for discovery. There's room to be a big fish, and there's room for to stand out right now
Okay.
on Good
Yeah,
Pods
that's
versus
true.
like Apple Podcast, for example.
Yeah.
Um, so part of my strategy is where can I go to stand out? So, for example, I launched my podcast. I have 18 episodes that have aired. I haven't. I started in September of last year, and I think the last episode may have aired in November. I've had great guests. All of my guests are people I've worked with very, very closely, and
Yeah.
to be honest, well, I, a lot of them are really famous, but the design there was that I felt way more comfortable recording with them because I was like, you're not gonna worry about my questions. You're only gonna be focused on their answers. So like that to me felt like, my approach to doing it. And I called on Mandy Moore and Jamie Lynn Sigler, Danielle Fishel, Topanga from Boy Meets World, and we recorded some awesome, awesome episodes. Um, but you would think because of those like that star power and those names and Jamie had a big commercial during the Super Bowl. She had that like sort of Sopranos nod that her and Rob Eiler, her brother, they had Mandy coming off of This Is Us. And
Oh
I can
yeah.
tell you that by being on IMDb, by having my podcast on IMDb, I was able to connect all of my guests as guests to my IMDb, which is a data point that's important for Amazon and Google to know, but also anyone who went to Mandy's page or Jimmy's page or
Mhm.
Danielle's page, they saw if they looked scroll down to podcast, they would see that they were recently on mine. Um, if these actors go on the late night show or late late show or make any TV appearance, The View, or I promise you, all of those shows have somebody dedicated to making sure as soon as it airs, because you can't give credit to something that hasn't aired yet on IMDb, but as soon as it airs, that those people's names are added as guests to those pages. IMDb is a tremendous SEO source for creators. So,
Interesting.
so I would say it this way: if you're a creator and you're making content, you've already got some credits that you are well past due, and I would love to help you figure out how to do that. If you are a business owner, or if you feel like you have nothing to do with like sort of the creator market, I would say think about how you as a business owner can show up in this creator economy. So
Mhm.
as a creator, I'm on LinkedIn in a business world, and I stand out a little bit on LinkedIn because I'm not a marketer who creates, I'm not an advertiser who creates. I'm strictly purely a creativist, and I stay in my lane. And I would say for accountants, lawyers, florists, and people with jobs that are not necessarily traditionally creative media jobs, a great way for you to appear in the search engines for shows, news, even podcasters who are looking for experts in your field are by being an IMDb. And it's a really cool opportunity. So like my point of the story, if you own a business and you've been a guest on a podcast, then you have the ability potentially to be on IMDb, and you want to be searchable. You want to be discoverable. You want to be found where people are looking for you
That's
because
awesome.
it's important.
Well, no, you're right. It is important. Like any type of, especially like you said earlier, it's early in the game kind of for a lot of social audio and platforms with podcasting is not super saturated though. Like it is starting to get that way. But
Nowhere even close. By the way, Can we say we're 25 years into reality TV, and still how many platforms are being created now for reality TV versus just
Exactly.
25 years ago? I mean, like, not even like broadcast networks, but like
Yeah.
digital, this is this space that we're in. We haven't even begun to fathom how big and how crowded this space is. It has nothing to do with how many podcasts there are. There is infinitely more space that's requiring us to create content. And I truly believe in the law of abundance. I don't think that we could be creating podcasts if in the future there wasn't going to be a place for those podcasts to be. I really truly, it's a little like heady to say something kind of like that. And it's very kind of like taking the leap of faith and believing in the law of abundance. But I
Mhm.
truly believe that I could not create something if I didn't think that there was a platform for it. And that platform might not it might not exist now, but maybe now is the time to tell the story and to record the story. And then 10 years, 5 years, or 2 weeks from now, when a new feature is launched on whatever new platform it is, allows me to be prepared. And that's how you get ahead in this digital game. There's no catching up, there's only skipping ahead and being prepared for the next evolution, the next launch, the newest sort of um, uh, tool or trick that these platforms are getting you to sort of like engage in. To me, that's the way that you get ahead in
Mhm.
this digital game. There's no catching up. There's no that's tough. That's a fool's errand.
I love
Silly.
that, Vinny. I absolutely love that because I think a lot of people get in and they're just like, ah, it's old. I can't make it. I can't do this,
Yeah,
or
I got to
you
start
know,
at ground one. I got to start from
yeah,
the scratch. Why? Start
that's
why?
so true.
I got to get nine. I have to post 9 posts on Instagram before I can. Why? Just go straight to Reels.
Yeah.
Rip off the band-aid and get right into it,
Hmm.
because most people aren't even going to realize what your profile looks like, by the way.
Exactly. No, that's the truth. They're not going to care about all the colors or if you need to use them or
No.
whatever to create the.
In fact, if you're listening to this, I want you to really please reach out to me and tell me if anyone in your life, a friend, anyone, knows what 3 posts you have pinned on your social media. Like, I know it's important to us, and I know we can say what pins we've posted on social media, but you let me know when someone tells you, "Oh my god, I saw that thing. Oh my gosh, I saw that thing that was posted. I saw that you pinned it, and I love that you pinned it." You let me know when someone. And my point is, like, I don't think profile visits are as relevant, as the outward motion of our
Mhm.
content and our energy.
I love that. That's gold, people. That's gold. I mean, absolutely amazing because I think so many of us get discouraged, getting into it. And I love how you're talking about IMDb because that's, I think, something that people haven't even thought about, especially for podcasts and stuff. I think, for TV, oh yes, if you're an actor, if you're production or any of that, of course, right? That's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
But IMDb kind of gives you a notch, in the
it
belt, so to speak, to be able to say, "Hey, I've got this on IMDb." People are like, "Whoa, IMDb, like that's different." That's really cool.
and
So they
and
can,
and it's not just you as the executive producer and writer, but also your company as a production company. Like, a
yeah,
lot of us don't realize that the companies that the LLCs or the C corps, S corps that we've created are actually the production companies that are financing our podcasts, our independent podcasts that we pay for, most likely are coming from businesses. Hopefully, we figured out a way to make most of that tax deductible. I think this is kind of like where I'm going with this as an external communications lead for a company. But you tell me what other way to create content out of the gate that you own. Like, you can't create a TV show and own it and then bring it to it. That's not how it works in America. You own it. You own the show until you sell it. The network owns it, and then they commission you to
yeah,
make it, and you get paid, a percentage in fees and blah blah blah. But the ownership is not yours, which means that the spin-offs, the ancillary ways to amplify and aggregate and distribute, your content, those are no longer the pieces of the property that you no longer own.
yeah,
And that's where there's some real opportunities for exclusive, non-exclusive licensing. Like, as I said, there's
yeah,
a lot of platforms and surfaces that have content needs. And if you as a brand owner, as a founder of a business brand, or even just someone who identifies as having your own personal talent brand, I think those are really important. It's really important. And the more you can be discovered and discoverable, I think
Mm.
inconsistently, and people will find you and then re-find you and rediscover you and rediscover you, and by taking credit, I don't even say by giving credit, but by taking credit and by applying for awards, these are great ways to stand out and get discovered.
That's a really good point too. There's so many awards out there that are there for the taking, and take
Mm-hmm.
it. It will help to give you that street cred. I was talking to somebody else about that earlier. Just like there's some great street cred out there that you can get. Have somebody either set up or vote for you or enter you in or you enter into it, and see what you can get. Because you don't realize how much more visibility you're going to get because you have that tacked onto your name,
Yeah.
and you've entered into that realm.
Yeah, or
You're one of
maybe
those
there's
people.
shame in winning. Maybe there's fear of losing. I mean, I can give you all the lists that I've experienced, but I'll say there's no greater feeling than winning an award with a team of people who were aligned, had individual goals and group goals, and we were all successful in our endeavor. And there's no one going around handing out Grammys and Oscars. Like, that's not the way it works. Some awards you have to pay to be in the academy, and then you have to pay per submission, per producer, per region, and it can get really expensive, by the way.
Yes.
And then some platforms have awards that are kind of where you're measured against yourself. There's
Mhm.
a categorical way that judges are going to judge entries, and all the entries in that category will be judged against the same 5 pillars. Everyone will get a score, and then maybe the top 60% will be silver placing, the top 10% will be gold placing, and the top 1% will be platinum or best of. So there are awards out there where multiple winners from categories are happening. In fact, my head is covering it, but like I had an award strategy last year, the first time ever. Like, I'm 25 years in TV and I didn't have an Emmy, and I was like, oh, that's kind of, how come? And I'm like, literally
Yeah.
because
How come?
I
You
never
deserve
once
it.
I never thank you so much, but I never once applied. I was never up for a nomination, so there's no way I could have ever won an Emmy if I am not considered. So I actually put energy into finding a project, and I have a regional Emmy, which means that my Emmy was won because it specifically targeted the Florida region. Is where this Emmy comes from, and it's a show about, it's called Red Flags. It's a show about a woman who leaves rehab, and the mile markers that you might want to keep an eye out for, the red flags that you can look out for, that ensure that we're not enablers and they're not relapsing. Where most TV shows end, they start with some sort of intervention and they end with them going to rehab. Our series picks up after rehab, afterwards, and it's unfortunately a topic that I can really personally relate to, from childhood even now to adulthood, being there and supporting people in my life with addictions, and I got to win this award with Samantha Rosen and Brandon Adams and Kevin Harrington and Joel Stillerman, like some awesome people that are just
Amazing.
powerful. And I couldn't be prouder to have won Emmys with them and for this project and for this purpose. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like I went out and said any old win will do good for me, but I had a lot of intent with what I was doing, and I bring that up because it's in for me, having a winning content strategy. Some of that is in the alchemy. Some of it is in, you want to have an award-winning process. Work with award-winning creators. Work with people who are open to being subjected to possibly winning and or losing awards, but people who feel like the content that they're making is worthy of acknowledgement because it was masterfully put together, not just put together on a whim and successful, in spite of all that we went through, but it was successful because of what we all went through. And I think there's real power in that, in in knowing that this is something that is going to continue to propel the story that you initially set out to tell. It's going to give it more light, more legs, a louder volume, and hopefully that makes your project, your message, your goals, your value, hopefully it brings you closer to them or makes them that much more successful. But it's really, for me, it's about discoverability, consistent and constant discoverability, being in places where your friends, family, colleagues are constantly saying, "Hey, I saw you in that thing over there. How funny you were already there. Oh, I saw you over here." And like I love helping people. It's almost like Easter eggs. I love helping people get discovered. And oftentimes the trick, to be really blunt, is go hide where everyone is looking. Is really the trick, and sometimes if you can nail that right, and you can really in nuance execute that perfectly, you can really really stand out and have a long-term relationship with your audience, especially through content. What do you think? I feel like I feel
That's,
like oh, there you are.
I'm
Hi.
I'm here. I'm just a voice in your head.
No, I was like, oh no, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you at all. Sorry. I was like, what happened? Where'd you go?
um yeah, I just that's really great, Vinny, and such a great encouragement to people that are, in the media world and getting in or just have been in there for a while. Go hide where everybody's looking. Things change, but you can always stay ahead of the curve, and just depending on, are you willing to, are you willing to look into those avenues? There's
Yeah,
different avenues to look into and to stay afresh. And, I just really appreciate the amazing words of wisdom that we've had from Vinny today. So you guys definitely uh, follow and reach out to Vinny because he's an
please.
amazing human being and is absolutely such a cool person. I mean, I absolutely have loved getting to interact and learn more about him and his team and all that stuff too. But he's got such a heart for people, and he's got a heart to help you get to where your end goals are and things. And also, he's just like, he's been there, he's done it, he's been and seen the success, and he's got going on.
Yeah, I've seen the success. I've seen the failure too. So I got to point that
Yep.
out. So
But you need
it's
both, right? I mean, you
yes.
can't always
Well,
have
I didn't say it was
success.
my failure or my success. I just got to watch everyone else's
Exactly. And
the
that's
first
even
10
better,
years. Oh
guys.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's
he's seen
true.
it all.
It's true. And it's so much easier to watch someone else fail than to be part of that fail. But it's even more rewarding when you become part of that success journey. When you,
Exactly.
the person who saw them fail, and let them fail. Sometimes you can't look. You can't look.
Well, I love what you said about
You can't
enabling.
mansplain everything. Like I know this. Like this
Exactly.
is like the. I come from
Yes.
TV. I've seen it happen, and it makes me cringe.
Yeah, you talked about enabling. You can't enable people either.
Yeah.
You at some point they have to pick up the ball and go with it. They have to make themselves, they have to make that step. And you can't help them forever because it doesn't help.
Yeah.
It ends up hindering them in the long run,
Yeah.
and they may crash even harder down the road when you decide to step away for a couple seconds. You can't
Yeah.
have that.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. In fact, yeah, there's a yeah, if you look at the Ashley Simpson's story and kind of like what happened, there's a
Yeah.
lot that went right there. But the one thing that went wrong was that they gave a little bit too much power to a band member who didn't have a lot of experience. And when the
Mhm.
SNL moment happened and the wrong song was played and Ashley didn't know how to react to it, just strictly based, as you say, strictly based on experience and not knowing how to handle yourself in those moments of adversity. Yeah, you don't want to set up someone to burn and crash. And to be honest, I already did that on Bravo and VH1 in the 2010s. I was like, "Ooh, you're kind of vicious. I'm gonna take care. Yeah, I'll put you a million. You want to go a millionaire matchmaker? Uh-huh. Dear Patty." Yep,
I
no
love
problem.
it. It's almost like the what is it, the waiter and waitress's revenge,
Yeah, 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 yeah. You sure you want this? Yeah, no problem, guy. I got that
Yeah,
for you. Coming up.
okay, okay. Extra hot sauce. No.
Hey, the networks were happy about it too. I'm not gonna complain.
Oh, Vinny, you're so awesome. And I love, thanks for sharing all this great stuff. Like,
Yeah,
super, super awesome. And guys, Vinny, you can be found on social media. I mean, IMDb, everywhere. He is
yeah.
everywhere. So find him.
I got
You
one of
can't get
those
away
names,
from
right?
him.
Yeah, I got one of those like unforgiving names. Yes, please reach out. I love saying hi on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I tend to be on those two platforms a little bit longer and more frequently than others. And my website is vpe.tv. And if you are an independent podcaster, if you are looking for a way to be discovered and be more discoverable as a podcaster, please feel free to take me up on this offer by going to ihaveapodcast.com/interview. Or I think if you go to ihaveapodcast.com, there's an interview button now. We made it really easy. But I'm making it as easy as possible for people to find this form so that they can apply and be part of what we're doing with these featured articles. I'm excited to be like, stirring up some things in this podcast industry of ours. Like it's time. We can get ready. We're
It
just
is
starting.
time. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's time to. Here's the interview button, guys.
Oh
Definitely
yeah.
go and check it out because he's got some really, really cool things there and some amazing wisdom to share. And I love how it's almost like a podcasting agency, if I can kind of say that a little bit,
Yeah.
Vinny. Because I mean, what a cool idea!
Yeah,
You need
it's a
this.
modern. I love it. Think of it. It's a modern podcasting agency, but I'm not your agent. I don't want 10. I want ugats. I want no percentage of anything. I'm so happy for the brands to pay you. To be honest, I use you as the podcaster. I use you as the opportunity to teach a brand the importance of what we're doing, to teach them how our KPIs as podcasters are different than like what you're seeing in social media, so they can understand the value of 200 downloads per episode
Mhm.
versus 200,000 likes on a TikTok post last year. and the value that we really bring to it. So and that's why I think that podcasting, whether you are an independent podcaster or you're an independent brand trying to get into podcasting, there's like literally it's like owning real estate. You literally you own IP that just continues to create and earn more value that you own 100%. I bring this up because again, I come from a corporate content background where I just didn't get to own the projects that I sold and had to sell, that I had no option to be able to stay an active part of. So
That's awesome.
now's the time.
Yes, absolutely. Time to shine. I love it. Thank you so much, Vinny, for being here. And if there's any last, comments you like to make, feel free to do that right now. And we've just loved having you here. You're just a breath of
Yes,
fresh air.
inspire, impact, and ignite conversations. And if you need help with any of that, reach out. I'm here, like
Good.
on purpose, consistently, as we've learned. Like I'm not going away anytime soon. This is what I've been doing a very long time, and to be honest, I had to create my podcast so that I could keep doing it on my way, so that I wasn't doing what I can do only when people paid me, but I can create the opportunities that didn't exist without needing to have big companies buy into or understand what we're doing. So go us is what I got to say about that. Go us.
I love it. It's so true. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. You can be on our show by emailing contact@madbosh.com and see if you fit the bill to be on the show. We'd love to have you. And it's just been a blessing to have Vinny. Go check out his website, ihaveapodcast.com or VPE TV. And also find him on social media. Stalk him. He's a lot of fun. And he does well with stalking, so definitely go check it out. All right, guys, take care, and we'll see you back here next time.